Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make some shredded chicken tacos, guacamole, just a kind of a little mix thing, and some nachos. And we're gonna bake up our sourdoughs. So we're gonna first bake up. We've got our mini sourdough bowls, and then we've got our specialty inclusion one. So I'm gonna take that one first. This is our spicy pepperoni and mozzarella inclusion in our sourdough. We use some spicy Italian seasoning plus some oregano, and then lots of pepperoni and mozzarella cheese. Oh, let me put my thing back on it. There we go. So we're going to score these guys. And we'll do our cute little design right here. Little triangles down. And then we're going to put these in. This will go in my big Dutch oven. And then we have our cute little ones will go in our mini Dutch ovens, which again was a completely unnecessary purchase that I saw at like Target last year. And I had this, romantic idea that I was going to make little individual Dutch oven meals for my family. And then I did it one time and I was like, this is not functional at all. So we've got our specialty pizza loaf, our spicy pepperoni and mozzarella loaf. These are very hot. I did have them preheating in the oven at 500 degrees. Now we've got our itty bitty loaves. So my hope is I don't have many Banneton baskets, but don't worry, I totally bought some and they're coming. But this parchment paper actually worked out fairly well. I was afraid it might slip, but I didn't want to cut up a towel and use that. So we kind of got do a little cut here and a little cut here. This is our traditional loaf. Again, I've never done the mini ones before, but they looked super cool and I had to try it. So hopefully they turn out. So we got our first one going in. Perfect little size. I'm just going to say these are really cute, so I hope they turn out. And our next one, I used a jumbo muffin tin to hold it. I realized I could have done like a little bowl or whatnot, but this is what my thought process was at midnight last night. Let's see if we can do a nice kind of expansion score. I will say the parchment paper doesn't give it quite as nice of a, like a skin as the, like the cheesecloth does. So we'll see if that affects the baking at all.
You have a question. Where did you get the small?
I got them at Target. They were a part of they're part of Joanna Gaines, like Hearth and Hand thing. She had them out there in the fall, I believe, or whatnot. They were actually really cheap. They were like $9.99 a mini Dutch oven. And so that's a pretty good deal for a cast iron thing. But I bought 8 of them because, I have 5 kids. And then I was like, oh, there's 7. Let's just grab, I have to get things in even numbers. Let's flip these out. Pull off. We'll do, there we go. Another crisscross. So I'm going to, hopefully these bake up and at least have the nice, bake up well. But I did my Banneton bowls. I got mini ones, 5-inch ones coming. And I think in the future that will make for a better thing. I will say, when I'm flipping them out, they're not as dry on the top. That's because on the cheesecloth, air can get to that, and it dries this bottom part out more. So I don't think it's going to affect the baking thing, but I think it makes it harder to score because it's not as hot.
Good question. What else are you making tonight?
We're going to do Mexican chicken tacos, like shredded tacos. And then I'll make a little seasoned rice and guacamole, my dips. And then I'm going to do some nachos. And we are going to roll out our sourdough tortillas for our tacos. So just kind of like a Friday fiesta night. We have a little bit lower numbers today because a couple kids are ones that sleep over and whatnot. So not having to cook for everyone tonight, which is kind of nice sometimes to have a little bit smaller load. Okay.
Yeah, but how much does Evie really eat?
Yeah, she's true. Although she loves the guacamole part. I was thinking about doing steak, but Evie loves steak. And I was like, okay, I'll wait for until she's back to do the steak because I think she would be so sad if she found out we ate steak without her. There we go. And one last. It's not too much extra work for the scoring. And I tried to make sure I really floured each parchment paper so that it would not stick to it because I was afraid that it was going to stick to the things. So let's see. This one is kind of a funky score. There we go. I did some cross hatching. Art 101. And we're going to slide this guy right in here. And our lid is on. And the little ones actually bake for the first part the same as the there it is. The big ones, but the second part takes 10 minutes less. So we're going to take this big guy first, and I'm going to put him in the oven. This is my spicy pepperoni and mozzarella one, and I have my oven at 500 degrees. So he's going to go in here all the way to the side. And then we're going to do the second one in 2 stages because this tray is heavy. And I'm doing it on a baking sheet simply because it would be a pain to take out each individual Dutch oven. So on a baking sheet it goes. And perfect. Okay. I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes. It's going to cook for 20 minutes at 500. And then we'll reduce our temperature down to 450. The little ones will cook for 450 with the lid off for 10 minutes, while the big one will cook for 20 minutes with the lid off. Okay. Let's get our rice going. We're going to make kind of like an herby chicken rice. So I have 1.5 cups of water in my pot already, and we're going to do 1 cup of rice, and I'm just going to give it a quick rinse. I'm using jasmine rice. There we go. There we go. And then we're going to give it a quick rinse. Rinsing it really gives it a nicer texture at the end. It prevents you from kind of getting that soggy rice because you know how it gets mushy. So rinsing it will help get you a nicer texture, as well as get rid of some of those like chemicals that are left over in the process. There we go. Rinse it out.
Yeah, question: does that type of rice taste different than other rice?
It's not necessarily the taste; it's the texture. So it's the differences like between the sizes of the grains. And I really love jasmine or basmati rice. They're my favorite ones, but it's not so much the taste. Now it tastes just kind of like other white rices. Now it tastes different from brown rice. As much as I try to like brown rice, I just do not like it. And so I never cook it. Growing up, my mom always cooked brown rice for us. Well, I will say we started out with white rice, and then she went through her like health craze in the early 2000s, and she switched to brown rice, and I just have never been able to get on board with brown rice. Okay, I'm gonna turn my burner to high, and I'm gonna add in a good spoonful of chicken bouillon because I do want my rice to have a nice kind of chicken flavor to it. And this is just an easy way to make some kind of flavored rices without having to buy like boxes of flavored rice. Use what you have. And then we're going to add in some oregano. about a teaspoon and 1 bay leaf. And I think that is good. We'll maybe add some fresh cilantro at the very end. If you add cilantro in the beginning, it kind of cooks it out. So you will add it then. I'm gonna give this a stir. And we'll also give it a nice little, like a teaspoon or so of olive oil. Where did my olive oil's still up here? There we go. It's just about a teaspoon. You don't need too much of it. We'll stir it occasionally until it gets to a nice boil. Then we'll reduce it down to a simmer. Okay, let's get our chicken ready. So we're going to start off. I'm going to mince up a little bit of onion for our chicken. So we're going to be using some rotisserie chicken. So this is like from Costco. You can get like their 2.5 pound packs of chicken. We're going to use some of that in our shredded chicken tonight. So it's kind of a cheat, but it makes you have dinner out faster. I'm not a huge fan of boiling and shredding chicken when I can buy it at Costco for probably the same cost without half the work. So we're gonna kind of use that as our base, and I'm gonna make a little sauce for it to kind of stew in. So we're gonna mince up some onions, and we're gonna kind of saute them, and then we'll add some garlic and some tomatoes, and then we'll make a lovely like spice paste and put our chicken in it. I'm gonna put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here. I'm going to turn on my burner to an 8 out of 10, so like a high medium. We're going to add our onions in. We're going to start to let those saute up. And then I'm going to kind of dice up my tomato. But first, I'm going to take out the vine tip. I'm just going to stick my knife in and kind of core it. And then we're going to do a kind of a small dice on these. And I will say, if your knife slips on your tomato skin, that means it needs a nice sharpening up. A dull knife is more likely to cut you than a sharp one because it's like you're more likely to slip on your food that you're cutting. So you're more likely to get in an accident, I will say. So sharpen up those knives because it does make a difference. I sharpen up my knives probably every 2 to 3 weeks. Depending on what I'm cooking or whatnot, because I do like to have a nice sharp knife. And I just use the honing steel that came with my knife set. When we got it, I have a Wusthof knife set, and it has a honing steel, and I just use that to sharpen it up. So you don't even need a super fancy knife sharpener. Okay, we've got our tomatoes diced up here. Let me get a mini spatula. Give us a nice stir. There. And then I'm going to stir our rice. Again, you want to stir your rice frequently in the beginning so it doesn't catch on the bottom of your pan. Nothing is worse than having to scrub off rice that's stuck to the bottom of your pan. Okay, we have got this ready, and we're going to just wait until those caramelize up. While we're doing that, we are going to start sauteing up some onions because we're going to have kind of like some fajita veggies to go with our shredded chicken tacos. And then we'll start rolling out our tortillas and cooking those up. And again, I'm using a yellow onion here, or a Valdalia one. Sweet onions are really great for sauteing. So you kind of want to avoid red onions or like white onions for that. White onions are great for salsa, but not so much for sauteing up. So these will give you the nicest flavor. And since we're doing them kind of like fajita vegetables because they're going to go, I either put them in my tacos. I'm going to put some on the nachos as well. And here. So nice long strings. It kind of goes well with the meat. Put a little bit of olive oil in here for this one. And we're going to let those start to saute up as well. I'll say these onions are fragrant today. They're making my eyes water. All right, and we'll slice these guys up as well. And just a couple more. And again, these are going to be my fajita vegetables for my shredded chicken tacos. I love onions. They just have such a great flavor. Okay. Ooh, my eyes are going to start tearing up here, guys. This is a very fragrant onion. They say that if you have like an open container of water by you, it's supposed to help, but I have literally a container of water there. I've got water boiling there, and my eyes are still on fire. So I'm going to say that myth has been busted. Okay, let's add in a little bit of garlic now that we're getting a nice little sizzle on these onions. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of garlic. Ooh. Oh, that's a little more than a tablespoon. No worries. Although you can never be too much garlic. There we go. When in doubt, take it out. There we go. I'll saute it up. I love the smell of onions and garlic. They always make your house smell so good. Whenever I'm cooking up, the kids are like, "Ooh, what are you cooking? It smells so good." And I'm like, that's just the onions and garlic. Give this a nice stir. Again, we're going to heat it on high until it comes to a boil. And you want a good rolling boil, not a soft boil, because you do want those grains to soften up. Okay. Now we have our onions in here. We're going to add in our tomatoes. You're going to get a lovely sizzle sound right away. There. And then I'm going to turn my heat down to about a 6. And now we're going to add in some spices for this, and then we'll add in our chicken. So I've got my paprika. I have about a tablespoon, so we're going to actually use all of that. Paprika is very mild, but it adds a great color and just a nice kind of undertone to your cooking. And then we're going to add some oregano. We're going to add about a half a tablespoon. It's about a half there. And then a little bit of cumin, ground cumin. And we're going to add about a teaspoon of that. And then about a teaspoon of Chipotle chili pepper. If you like it spicier, you can add a bit more. And if you like it really spicy, throw in some cayenne pepper or jalapeno pepper. We're going to add about a tablespoon of onion powder. Let me give my rice over here. We're getting a nice boil on it. So I'm going to give it a quick stir. And once it comes to a boil again after this stir, then I'm going to reduce it down to low and put the lid on. Okay, let's give this a stir. We're making kind of a nice little seasoned paste. I always find heating it up in the oil that's there in the little like vegetables first and brings out the flavor better than when you try to add it with all the meat in there. It just kind of heats it up. So it's kind of like making a nice little seasoned paste. And then we'll add a little bit of chicken broth to it. There we go. We're going to let that heat up. I'm going to turn it down to low, let that simmer. And then we have a bay leaf. We're going to take one big one or 2 little ones. And then I'm going to just crush it up in there as well. When you crush it up, you won't notice its texture as much, and it lets out the flavor a lot quicker than just the big one. There we go. Okay. Now that our rice is back to a boil, give it one more stir. And then I am going to turn this down to low, the lowest of the low. We'll put our lid on, and that's going to cook.
You have a question? Have you started your chocolate sourdough yet?
No, my jar comes tomorrow. So that is when I should be. I'll probably start it tomorrow night, assuming I have everything, which I've looked at a couple of recipes for the chocolate starter, and I think I have it all. Because you just need, a good high quality cocoa powder, a little bit of sugar and flour for it. Okay. Now we are going to take, instead of using chicken broth, I'm going to use water and chicken bouillon to make the base for our seasoned sauce for our shredded chicken. You could use straight up chicken broth if you wanted to, but we're going to start off and add about half of this first. And then I'm going to kind of deglaze the tray. And this is again for our shredded chicken, which we're going to be using in our tacos tonight and our nachos. We'll have our sauce, like our fajita vegetables, our seasoned rice. We're going to cook up our sourdough tortillas, as well as we have our bread coming out. There we go.
You have a question? Have you started your garden?
No, this weekend I'm going to go and get my stuff this weekend. We kind of have a lull in the day, and I'm going to start it. I really want to get some of those Vego, like garden beds. A couple years ago for Mother's Day, my husband built me these awesome garden beds, and they're huge, but they were made out of wood, and it's been about 8 years, and of course they have started to rot, and then our fence post behind them has started to rot, so we kind of need to replace that so our fence doesn't fall out, because we don't want our dogs escaping. But I think I'm going to replace some of my garden beds. We'll do a couple this year and then a couple next year, because I have this like one corner in my backyard that gets a lot of sun. The rest is covered by these like 100+ old maple trees. And I love the trees, so I will never cut them down.
So you say you're going to replace them?
Yes. Well, when I say I'm going to replace them, I mean it's my honey-do list. And he will replace them for me and fill them up for me, and I will plant them. And then I've got to figure out how to get my kids to water the garden successfully, because I love growing a garden, but anybody who knows me, I am like the plant murderer. As in, I'm more like the plant torturer. I bring them to the brink of death, and then I revive them, and then I bring them back to the brink of death, and I revive them. And it's kind of, that relationship with me, with our plants. So we don't have the best relationship, except 2020, that summer of COVID. I was amazing gardener. I had so much time, and I rocked it. We're going to put a little bit of Chipotle, smoky Chipotle paste in here as well. That year, my garden was amazing. I grew like everything under the sun, and it worked out well. And I got like this whole routine of watering, and I did great. I have not been able to replicate that luck.
You have a question? What's your garden going to have this year?
I'll have a huge herb garden, because I use that the most. Then we'll have tomatoes. We'll have the big tomatoes and cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and then I do have a fig tree that comes back every year, so we get figs from that. And I think that's about it, because it's not a super huge garden spot, so I like to do the things I know we're going to eat well and eat, that will produce. Tomatoes are great because they just keep on producing here. Okay, we've got that here. Give these a toss. We're going to put in a little bit more of our liquid, and then we're going to add our chicken, and we're going to let our chicken start to stew in this. So I'm not going to use this whole bag of pre-cooked shredded chicken. That's a lot. I'm just going to use about half, and then I can use it for another meal. There we go. I love this stuff from Costco, because again, it's so much easier, and you don't have to, you can always buy the hack of buying your own rotisserie chicken and shredding it off. But you know what? I'll let them shred it for me for like $1 upcharge. You do want to give it a little bit of a chop, because sometimes the pieces are huge. So we're just going to chop it up here. And then I'm going to put it in this nice seasoned kind of sauce we made, and we're just going to let it simmer on low in there so it gets out all of the nice, soaks up all the flavors. And I'll see if I need to add any more liquid. Here we go. I think we're good with the liquid department. And then you just want to cover it up, and then we're just going to let it simmer on low. You don't want to keep it too high because you just want it to kind of soak up and heat up slowly versus like high where it will then just completely fall apart. And this will kind of give you as if you spent all day slaving over your chicken. You did it in like 30 minutes, but it will give you that feel. Let me wash my hands real quick. Okay, let's start warming up our skillet over here for our tortillas. So, and I'll grab my little tortillas. We made our sourdough tortillas earlier today, and it's with discard, so they're not like a true sourdough. It has about a cup of sourdough discard in it. I've got my tortilla press. This does about 50% of the work. I still need give it a little roll afterwards because I like big tortillas. These presses are made mainly for corn tortillas, so they don't smush quite as well. But we take a ball. You got to put it between two.
Yeah, 2 questions. What fruit you having tonight? And are you finally through your bananas?
Oh, okay. So fruit we'll have, I cut up some pineapple earlier today, so we'll have that, and I probably might cut up another mango. And then I have just 3 bananas left. We made banana donuts earlier today at our lunch stream. So I'm almost through them. Look at this beautiful tortilla. Now I just like to roll it out a little bit thinner because they do come a little bit fatter. Now, if I made a smaller one, that would be fine. But you know what? A little extra roll, and you're ready. Now, with the dough, you don't have to add any butter to your skillet. Our oven is beckoning us right now, so we will head over there, and we are going to take off the lids to our sourdough. This is the moment of truth for those little ones. Got my staging area right here. Okay. Turn you off before you beep at me. Whew. Let's get you big one out first, because he's the easier. This is our mozzarella pepperoni spicy Italian loaf. You can see all the cheese and the mozzarella, or in the pepperoni in there. Okay, now these guys are my heavier bunch. This is where you get your workout. And we just got to take off our lids. Oh, they popped up. Look at them. Some of them are so cute. I will say the crisscross one is nice, but they turned out so far cute. Look at those little baby loaves. I think they're going to be successful. You know, it's always when you try something new, you're always happy when they turn out, especially when I'm live streaming it. And if they fail, then they fail in front of everybody. Okay, I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to first bring my temperature down to 450 because I don't like to have a super dark crust on mine. So we're going to bring it to 450, and then I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes to take the little ones out, and then we'll set it for another 10 minutes afterwards. Okay, let's see. Yep, our skillet over here is hot. So tortillas have a high fat content, so you don't need to add any butter or anything to the skillet. And give these onions a nice toss. Look at them. We're getting a nice fajita char on them. That is, you get that by just letting them sit. I know it's hard because you might want to over stir. Let them sit. That's how you're going to get that nice kind of crispy edge to it. Okay. We got my pepper here. We're going to use 1 red bell pepper. We're going to add it to our onions, but I do like to have our onions cook up a bit first so that they have all their flavor out, because once you start adding in other vegetables, they don't caramelize up or char up as nicely. And we're going to do nice kind of thin slices. I find it's easier to cut your bell peppers from the inside out versus the outside, because that skin can be tricky, especially if your knife is not sharp enough. But if you start from the inside, it will just cut through a lot nicer. And then I never waste my tops. There we go. And we can add these in. We'll have our peppers and our onions. Give them a nice stir. Now we'll let those peppers char up some. There we go. Let's see how our tortilla. Good. Still needs a little bit, but let me prep our next one. Again, I like to start by smushing out. And then we'll place it between parchment paper. And then into our press we go.
You have a question? What made you want to start doing all this?
Well, I actually started cooking when I was 13 years old for my family. And I kind of I have loved cooking ever since then. So it was not anything like I decided to go on the adventure. But I loved it for it, and I learned to do lots of different cuisines and everything.
No, I think they mean streaming.
Oh, streaming. You know what? It was a lot of people have been asking me about, like, will you send me your recipe? Will you teach me how to cook this? Because I'm always like the friend who brings all the food to the parties and whatnot. And my sister's always like, "Ooh, send me your chicken tortilla soup recipe." My niece was like, "Send me your green bean casserole recipe." And I was like, you know what? I can share this with the world. They can learn something, have the things, but also it's like for my kids when they grow up. If they ever want to cook one of my meals, they have like a living catalog where they can go find it and cook along with me, and hopefully remember being home with me and how wonderful my meals were, and make them want to come back home as well. But it's just kind of nice to have this. It's like when you're scrolling through on your like feed and you have pictures come up from like a year or 2 or 7 years ago, 10 years ago, and you kind of get to reflect back on that. I'll have these memories. My kids will have them. It's really cute when my kids decide they want to join me in a stream, like Chef Teddy or Evie, and they're always cute to watch too.
Big question: are those flour or corn tortillas?
These are flour. These are flour, and they're with sourdough discard. So I love flour tortillas. I will say fresh corn tortillas are things. I don't like store-bought corn tortillas because they just fall apart. But I think I'm gonna have to make some corn tortillas someday because they get a little bit thinner and are a bit easier than the flour ones. But I love a nice soft tortilla.
Someone made a comment that they just made gravy using your technique and it turned out perfect.
Oh, good. Awesome. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear when people have tried out a recipe and it worked out well for them. I try to make things not like super difficult, super hard, or super bougie. Like, you can have great food without spending an arm and a leg on ingredients or having super fancy cooking stuff. You know what I mean? And doing simple techniques, to make it a little bit easier. These peppers are just wanting to run away from me today. Okay. Let's see. Are you about done there? Yes. We've got this guy done. Let's put this little one on, next one on. We're going to let it cook. The first one always takes so much longer because it needs time the skillet to heat up. Okay, let's make our guacamole and our corn salsa because I love those with our dinner tonight. So it's got our avocados. I grabbed a bunch of them. I don't think we'll use all of them, but you know, sometimes it's like playing Russian roulette. You think you got a good one, and then it was like dropped at one point in its life, and it was not good. But we got a good one. But you know, sometimes you never know. Or I remember sometimes when my kids help me bring in the groceries and they just like throw them, and then you see your bag of avocados roll across the floor, and you're like, no, they're ruined. You know, it's like apples. If they get bruised, they're done for. Okay. These looks like we have 4 good ones. Let's grab a spoon and a fork to mash it. And luckily, none of them have super huge pits. That's also like the worst is when you open it up and they're like a giant avocado pit, and you're like, oh, you stole all my deliciousness from me. Here. Looks like we've got some nice bubble action going on our sourdough tortilla here. Let me slide this guy under. We've got our nice little speckles on there. Okay, let's get our avocados out for our guacamole. This is everyone loves guacamole. See, growing up, my grandparents, they lived all over. They're Europeans, but they retired to Spain. That was apparently where they'd went on their honeymoon like 50 years beforehand, and they settled down in the same town that had stayed in a small town called Salobreña. And I would go visit them during the summer, and they lived right next to an avocado farm. And the neighbors there were really nice. They were like, if the avocado has fallen on the ground, you can have it. And so they would send me out every day to go pick avocados off the ground. And I would would bring them back. And then my grandfather would make this delicious like salsa to put in it, or we'd just eat them with a little bit of salt, and they were just so good. You know, having tree ripened avocados, like literally from tree to table. You can't beat that. Okay, we've got our second one just about done. Let me squeeze up this guy. I will say the press does make a difference if you've got a lot of tortillas to get through. And it's fairly cheap. I think this was like $20, $25 on Amazon. So it's not like an equipment that's going to break the belt. But if you're going to be having a lot of tortillas, it is great. I probably use it once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. We do tortillas a lot. And then I'm just going to thin it out a little bit more because these, again, are big tortillas. And that just makes it easier instead of having to do it like 20 times.
Someone said avocados are good with just honey. Have you ever tried that?
I've had avocados sweet, not straight up honey, but I've had them mashed with bananas before, which I really liked. I actually used to give that to my babies all the time when they were little. And so I haven't tried honey, but I think it would be great. I love avocado popsicles. Such a random thing, but there's like this popsicle place here, Las Paletas, I believe, and they have avocado popsicles, which are delicious, and they're sweet. And I think they might actually be made with honey, but I love those. Okay, let's get our guacamole going. Now, I do kind of a more simple guacamole. It's really just fresh lime juice and garlic salt. Sometimes I'll do like the table one where I add on all the other stuff, but today just the simple. And I hear our oven calling us, so we're going to head that way. Let me squeeze that out. Make sure I grab these. Hopefully those little ones are perfect and ready. Nice golden crusts on these. They're very hot. I'm going to set it right here. Let me put the timer back on for 10 minutes so I don't forget about the other one. Now again, if you like a darker crust, you'll want to keep them in there, but I'm going to take these out and flip them on a cutting board because I do like to get them out of the Dutch ovens as quick as possible. Let me flip this tortilla first. So, because you want to, if you leave them in the Dutch ovens, the bottom will just continue to cook and get more, and I just want a nice light golden brown like this. So look at our first cute little baby. Look at these guys. So these are our baby sourdough bread. I used my traditional loaf roll, but when I was going into shaping it, I cut them up into 6 and shaped each mini loaf. And then I put them in a jumbo muffin tin to get the shape. And I put a parchment paper. I've got mini Benetton bowls going. But then we just scored them and I popped them in my baby Dutch ovens and we baked them up and they look pretty cute. I think they'll be even more amazing next time now that I have my Benetton bowls coming. But look again, taking them out really quick, you've got that nice golden brown crust on them. They are still hot to touch, guys, but they're going to be delicious. Okay, let's get this guy, this hot thing, out of the way. See, I knew these little mini Dutch ovens were going to come in handy one day.
You have a question? Are you going to make anything with them, or is it just personal?
I think personal little ones. It was the first time coming out, so I wasn't sure how they were going to turn out. So I didn't want to, you know, put a lot of faith in them. And it's funny how some of them turned out a little bit better than others. Like this one is like picture perfect. And some of them, I wonder if I like didn't shape them as well. But, you know, it's the first time doing the minis. And, you know, it's a little bit different than the full roll when you're laminating. So I will now, I've got like a learning process. And I think with my Benetton baskets that are coming, the little ones, they'll be perfect for. Let's make I've got my avocados, garlic salt, and lime juice in there. We're going to make our corn salsa, which I love. And then our dinner time is going to be just about ready. Let's get this. With the tortillas, you're going to, I stole my, here we go. I took my things. It's like a never ending thing. You could always like flatten these out beforehand. You don't necessarily have to do it while you're cooking, but I like to keep my cooking time in one time a day so that I'm just, you know, cooking once.
You have a question? Will you be able to do an inclusion loaf with the small ones?
I'm actually going to try that out next. So I think you definitely can. During that like last lamination process, I think you can do the inclusion, or you could always kind of divide up your dough beforehand. But I think the easiest will be to do the inclusion at the ending lamination part of your dough. But I am planning to do that because I think that would be like really delicious. Like you could do chocolate chips in one and like blueberries and lemon zest. So you could really, you can do a couple, it's a good thing. So I think so. Let's get this guy on here. Let's see, our check on our rice. Looks good. Ooh, hot. Let me, you always say they're not going to be as hot. There we go. So I'm going to turn off my rice so it doesn't cook anymore, but it's nice. You can tell it's got that nice, firm, but soft texture.
Question, have you ever tried Worcestershire sauce in your guacamole?
I have not. I do use Worcestershire sauce a lot, but I almost use it every single day. I use it to marinate my meat. But I bet you the acidity would work really well with the fat in the avocado. I wonder if it would make it like a lighter, smoother guacamole. I feel like that would actually work fairly well. I've done some balsamic vinaigrette in it before, like some vinegar, and that has worked, you know, just to make it a little bit more tangy. I like add that to my salsas a lot. We've got our green onion. I'm gonna add that right there. A little bit of red onion. Again, I buy like one red onion and it like lasts me a week, and I use it like for sandwiches or I'm adding it in because, you know, red onions really are only good fresh. They don't cook up nicely. They get more soggy and they don't have enough like flavor in them, but they're great to add to dips or sandwiches or salads. And it's nice. I just use one onion and I just cut off a little as I go.
Yeah, question. Do you know why some people put a towel around the lid of rice?
I'm sure it's to prevent the boil over. But I'm not 100% sure. I've never done that before, but I know sometimes if when you're cooking rice, it can boil over. So I wonder if that helps kind of steam it and keep the steam in versus causing it to like bubble up. There's a lot of ones who they'll heat it up and then you just take it off the heat completely and you let it sit for a while and it cooks it slow. So here is some fresh cilantro. We're going to add this into my corn salsa. And then we're also going to add some fresh lime juice. Here we go. And a little bit of garlic salt. And then our corn salsa. Oop, lost a spice. There she goes. Okay, so we'll stir this up and then we'll let it sit. And that, if you've ever had the like corn salsa from Chipotle, I love it. This is like my mock version of it. So I just love it. But it's so easy to make at home and it will taste the exact same. Where did my little fork go? Here it is. Now we're going to mash up our avocados. I find a fork is your best friend. It works really well for mashing them through. Versus a spoon, it doesn't work as well. But we got it mashed. I have technically one of those big, they're for making guacamoles or certain, like for any type of mole. It's made out of lava stone, but you have to have it seasoned and it weighs like 20 pounds. And I used to use it and now I haven't done it in years because it's just too difficult.
You have a question? Have you ever cooked with kielbasa sausage?
Yes, I have. A lot of times it's called Polish sausage, and I actually have a couple recipes on my page. I have like a Polish sausage cabbage soup, but yes, I actually like it. I love it in soups because it adds such a great flavor in it, and I use it, and I've done a couple of rice dishes with it in. Okay, we've got our guacamole and our corn salsa, which will be a nice little fresh kind of addition to our meal. And here's our chicken. We've got it thickening up nicely. I'm going to just grab, let me see if I can steal a little taste of the sauce, see if we need to add a little bit more. Delicious. We chopped up we minced up some onion, garlic, a whole tomato, and we used some like chipotle seasoning, smoky chipotle, oregano, bay leaf, and all that good deliciousness. So this has a great flavor without being too spicy. Let's get our last one right here, and then we're going to just make up our nachos real quick. I am a nacho girl, and typically every time I go to a Mexican restaurant, I get nachos, or anytime I make tacos for people here, I make myself nachos, and they're super easy to make. And so I'm going to make like a small batch of nachos because my kids also love to kind of eat them as a little appetizer. And I will say They're really easy to do. And even if you don't have that delicious like queso dip, you can just kind of use, cheddar cheese and pepper jack for it. Okay. Let's get this tortilla nice and thin. And we've got our tortillas here. This is our sourdough discard tortillas. So they're a little bit puffier than a regular one because they, puff up. But before we do our nachos, let's get our last roll, or not roll, sourdough loaf out of the oven. And you can smell the pepperoni. Look at this gorgeous spicy pepperoni and mozzarella cheese loaf. And it is going to be absolutely delicious. This was a request to make again. I made it similar last time, but I was told I needed to add more pepperonis. So let me get this hot bowl dish out of the way, because again, you want to get it off of this as quickly as possible. And look at our lovely, all of the mozzarella, the cheese melted there. You have a nice kind of golden crust on the bottom. It is going to be delicious. Let me see if I can slide this around. Hot, hot, hot. Okay. So for our nachos, super easy. You take a baking dish and you want to line it with parchment paper. This is going to be your friend because all the cheese and stuff will melt on that, and then you can throw it away and you don't have to scrape it off of your thing. Look at this lovely bubble forming on our tortilla. Look at that. I think it's ready to flip. Let's turn this down just a little. Should like deflate in just a second. Okay, where did I put my chips? So use any chips that you like. Just make a simple layer on your baking dish. It's going to be easy. And then what you want to do is we're going to coat it with some cheese first. Then we're going to do some meat and chicken and peppers, and then a second layer of cheese. And then you pop it in the oven for just a few minutes until that cheese is melted. So we've got our nice little thing right here on top. And then when you take it out, you'll also top it. I'm going to use some pepper jack cheese. So you've got a little bit of a little spice in it as well. Here we go. Shredded cheese, you don't want to use slices because the slices will just like be too thick. Let's see. Just about ready with that one. And then we'll load it up with our stewed chicken. This is our Chipotle stewed chicken. And then our fajita veggies. And then we'll put a next layer of cheese, and then it's going to go right in the oven. And this takes like less than 5 minutes. So by the time we have everything served up, we will be ready to take these out. So a little bit of more cheese over the top, cheddar. And then we are going to put some more pepper jack. And then we're going to pop these in the oven. You don't want to put any of your sauces or dips on it yet. Those are going to go in afterwards because you want to have them cold. So we're going to pop this in the oven. I left my oven at 450 because it's going to cook up real fast. If you have an air fryer setting or convection bake, those are perfect. So we have it in there and we're going to let it cook up. And now we are going to prep our next tortilla. And then I think I can start prepping everything together. We are on the last hurrah. There we go. Let's get this guy out. Nice squeeze. It's always fun. I love like our little Fiesta Friday. Mexican food is one of the, like, I will say, like, Tex-Mex is one of, like, our family, like, everyone likes. You know, I always say it's kind of hard to make a meal that everyone likes, you know, when you have so many different opinions, but they all have something here that they love. And Teddy was actually asking, he's like, can I have avocado toast? And I was like, yes, I can put the avocado on the tortilla and you have a version of avocado toast. Okay, let's get a bowl here. We're gonna make our cream fresh, or kind of a sour cream for this, and then we'll be able to plate up dinner. So you're just gonna take about a third cup of cream, heavy cream, and we're gonna squeeze a whole fresh lime over it. And this is gonna cause the cream to curdle into sour cream. And this is just gonna have a much nicer, it's like that fancy sour cream you get with Mexican. We'll put a little garlic salt and then a little bit of cilantro. And we will have everything ready for our dinner tonight. And there we go. Quick mince. Throw it in. And let's get this ready to serve. And as you see, as we stir, you see how it's already instantly thickened up. Boom. Easy way to make the most delicious kind of cilantro lime sour cream, which just adds another flavor complexity for our dinner. Okay, let's serve up and then we can grab our nachos. So for tonight's dinner, let me grab a nice big one. Look at our steamy rice. There. I like to put a little bit of rice in there. This is our chicken kind of herb flavor rice. It has oregano and a bay leaf in there. And then I'm going to take our stewed chicken. Our little fajita veggies. And a nice dollop of that. Let me grab a spoon real quick. We're going to add our corn salsa on here. And our cilantro sour cream. And so now we have a delicious shredded chicken taco burrito type thing. But look, you can just hold it up and like that, and it'll be perfect and delicious. Kind of, you know, we got our homemade sourdough tortilla with our shredded chicken, our rice, guacamole, corn salsa, sautéed vegetables. And now we're going to go grab our nachos out of the oven and we'll make them all bougie too. Here they are. Want to make sure I've got, let me see if I've got another trivet in here. Perfect. Gorgeous. Now these are our shredded chicken nachos, and we're going to jazz them up with our corn salsa, guacamole, and sour cream for a delicious appetizer / dinner. I love nachos, so I typically like to do them just this way. So we're going to do our corn salsa, kind of give it a nice over, and then you need kind of your big dollop of guacamole. And last but not least, You've got your sour cream. And voila, you have delicious homemade nachos. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. We made our homemade tortillas and our shredded tacos, our nachos, our cute little itty bitty sourdough rolls, and of course, we cooked up our pepperoni sourdough loaf as well. Again, we don't forget to like and subscribe, and we do upload all of our videos onto the link on our page so you can always watch along and cook with us. And thanks again for joining us. I hope you guys learned something or at least had fun. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe.